If you ever left a particular relationship and you felt so drained, this is for you. I know most empaths are more vulnerable to be depressed and to be exposed to toxic relationship, and that's because of this single reason. I'm going to tell you that reason in this video, and I will give you a blueprint on how to identify this reason and to be able to help yourself so you don't become a victim or you don't become another vulnerable empath. Being an empath is one of the most beautiful things in life. I do believe that it is one of the most decent predisposition. What makes empaths to be very vulnerable to either toxic relationship, narcissistic abuse, depression, you name it? What makes them vulnerable? Stop caring is not a psychological intervention. Stop caring is not an advice at work, because you're inadvertently just telling yourself that I will care more when you say I'm stopping to care. Most empaths, you realize with me, are those people who are able to become so locked in, for lack of a better word. They are so engaged in conversation. They sense other people's wound and they want to bury themselves in that wound. They want to be able to be involved in your own emotional heavy lifting. But that is the single reason that makes them so vulnerable to other subsequent kind of toxic relationship and toxic relationship dynamics. It's quite understandable that people process emotion differently, just like information. For most empaths, they process their own emotion on a different scale. That is not a weakness at all, but when it's not understood and well properly managed, it becomes a challenge. Imagine the last time where you were in a conversation with someone, and during that conversation, you could feel their pain. In fact, you left that conversation feeling as if you ran a marathon. What you probably did there was you felt a victim of an emotional contagion. Biologically, we understand this as your own nervous system. Now imagine this is a person who is experiencing a difficult situation, and I'm empath and I'm talking to them and I'm absorbing their emotion. What is happening there is that my brain is co-regulating with his own brain, and if his own brain was dysregulating, of course in that moment it's obviously dysregulating, my nervous system also become dysregulated with their own dysregulation. And you walk away, you feel what they were feeling. Because what just happened there is that you've meshed yourself with their own dysregulation. So how do you deal with this? But before I share that, I really would love you to know this. It's okay for you to take a break. Taking a break from conversation like that is not you being antisocial. To deal with majors, all empaths will need to have a different kind of skills they really tell them about. Most empaths don't have this particular skill. And that is the skill of being able to stay in a conversation without absorbing everything. Most people think presence is openness, like absorbing everything in a room. That's not presence, that is major. And major is what makes you feel exhausted. The truth is, true presence requires boundary, not a wall, a membrane that could allow you to still be in that moment, but you're not absorbing everything. And that's what most empaths lack. That's why they become depressed. They are vulnerable to abusive relationship and the sort of things, because they are constantly so open and they can't separate being open from presence. And they feel meshed into different dynamics that is going on in a particular room or in a relationship. If you think about a membrane, it is something permeable enough to feel, not flooding you all at once. It's enough for you to gradually, feel what is there in a controlled manner. And it's strong enough to keep you separate from what you're feeling. And that's what you need as an empath. Problem, again, is that most empaths, even with their membrane, they can't recognize how to take care of their membrane whilst within a relationship or whilst within a conversation that is so draining. And so what you realize is that this membrane begins to fail gradually. But the truth is, we can identify when our membrane is failing. I'm going to give you 3 mechanisms to help you identify that and how to take care of your membrane so you don't collapse into heavy emotional lifting. Now imagine there's someone in front of me. You could hear what they're telling you, and gradually you could feel something shifting. You start getting sucked into their own emotion. You could sense it, but most of the time we ignore that sensation. That moment, that pull is a trigger, and we could sense that trigger. And here's what happens in that pull. In just a moment, your nervous system starts to see their own distress as your own distress. And then you make a decision that is not necessarily your own decision, but you're making a decision based on the fact that your nervous system has sensed someone else's distress as your own distress. So what you want to do is to recognize the window. There's always a window, and that's a gap between the major and the pull. And in 3 seconds, you do these 3 things. The first second, notice that pull, name it internally. I can feel this pull. Call it out internally, and in one slow breath, breathe out this pull, not in, breathe it out. And then ask yourself one question: is this mine or it is theirs? I do believe that empaths have the permission to be able to feel what they feel without becoming sucked in. I do believe that you can be in a room and be present without being so open. That's what makes you vulnerable to toxic relationship. Learning how to practice this would help you to maintain your disposition of being an empath while simultaneously being able to take care of yourself. Now save this video, share it with someone else, and I will see you in my next video.